For all of human history, the stars and planets were mysterious points of light, their true nature hidden. The universe felt small and close. Then, in a Dutch spectacle maker's workshop, an apprentice discovered that lining up two lenses in a tube made distant objects appear startlingly close. This simple tube, the telescope, was refined by Galileo, who turned it toward the heavens. The moon was not a perfect sphere, but a world of mountains and craters. Jupiter had its own moons. The Milky Way was revealed as a sea of countless stars. This tool didn't just magnify objects, it expanded the human imagination, proving we were not at the center of a small cosmos, but part of a vast, dynamic one. It teaches us that by extending our natural senses, we can challenge our deepest assumptions. Every satellite image, every glimpse of a distant galaxy, begins with that first act of curiosity, looking through a lens to see further than ever before. For most of history, every book was a treasure because every single word had to be copied by hand. This made them rare, expensive, and full of mistakes. Knowledge was locked away. In the 15th century, Johannes Gutenberg, a goldsmith, combined existing ideas into a revolutionary machine, the printing press with movable metal type. His genius was in creating individual, reusable letters that could be arranged into words, inked, and pressed onto paper. Suddenly, pages could be reproduced not by the dozen, but by the hundreds. The first major book printed was the Bible, and soon, scientific ideas, stories, and news could spread across Europe at an unprecedented speed. This invention shattered the monopoly on information, fueled the Renaissance and Reformation, and made literacy a possibility for the common person. It teaches us that democratizing knowledge is the most powerful engine for social change. Every newspaper, every textbook, and every blog post traces its lineage back to that press, the machine that taught the world to read. Long before screens and keyboards, computation was a job done by people, often with the aid of simple mechanical devices like the abacus. Complex calculations for science, engineering, or census data could take teams of humans months. The vision emerged. Could a machine be built to follow a set of instructions automatically? Pioneers like Charles Babbage imagined mechanical calculating engines, but the true breakthrough came with the move from gears to electricity. The realization that simple on-off electrical switches, like vacuum tubes, then transistors, could represent the binary language of 1 and 0 was the key. This allowed for logic, memory, and programs. The first electronic computers were room-sized, but they solved in hours problems that would have taken lifetimes. This invention shows us that by breaking down complex problems into simple, repeatable steps, we can create a tool of unimaginable versatility. The computer is not just a calculator. It is a universal machine for thought, creativity, and connection, reshaping every aspect of how we live and understand our world. Imagine your voice being heard instantly across a city, a country, an ocean. Before the telephone, that was pure fantasy. Communication was limited to the speed of a letter or a telegram's coded dots and dashes. Alexander Graham Bell, working on improving telegraphy, was experimenting with sound waves. He had a moment of insight. If different sounds could make a needle vibrate differently, perhaps those vibrations could be turned into an electrical current, sent down a wire, and recreated at the other end. His famous first words, "Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you," were not shouted, but transmitted. The telephone made distance irrelevant for conversation. It changed business, connected families, and created a new layer of intimacy across spaces. It teaches us that human connection itself is a problem worth solving, and that preserving the nuance of a voice, its emotion and immediacy, is a powerful form of communication. That first call began the journey to our hyper-connected present. For most of history, clothing was draped, wrapped, or tied. Robes were held with sashes. Cloaks fastened with pins or brooches that could slip and stab you. Getting dressed was time-consuming and often required help from others. Clothing had to be loose enough to pull over your head or wrap around your body. The idea of fitted garments that could be opened and closed easily simply didn't exist. Fashion was limited by how fabric could be secured to the body. Then, around the 13th century in Europe, someone paired a small disc with a loop of thread creating a buttonhole. The button could slip through the hole and hold fabric closed securely. This seems trivial until you realize what it enabled: fitted clothing. For the first time, garments could be tailored to follow the body's shape because they could be opened to put on and then buttoned closed. Shirts, jackets, and coats transformed from loose wrappings to precisely fitted garments. Fashion exploded with creativity. Military uniforms became practical and distinctive. Working clothes became more functional. People could dress themselves independently without servants. The button democratized not just fashion, but self-sufficiency in daily life. Children could learn to button their own coats. What makes the button fascinating is how such a small innovation rippled through culture. It influenced social class distinctions. Elaborate buttons became status symbols. It changed manufacturing, creating entire industries of button makers working in bone, wood, metal, and eventually plastic. It even played a role in gender distinctions with men's and women's clothing buttoning on opposite sides. The button teaches us that transformative inventions don't have to be grand or complex. Sometimes a simple fastener, barely noticed, can reshape how billions of people present themselves to the world. The smallest innovations, repeated millions of times daily across centuries, can have impacts as profound as any major technology. Progress often hides in the details we take for granted. For millennia, lightning was a terrifying mystery, a fleeting, destructive power from the heavens. The idea of capturing and using this invisible force was the stuff of myth. Through the curiosity of thinkers like Benjamin Franklin, who showed its connection to sparks, and Michael Faraday, who discovered that moving a magnet through a coil of wire could generate a continuous current, electricity transformed from a curiosity into a utility. The key realization was that this was not just a spark, but a flow, a river of energy that could be channeled. Once generators were built to create this flow and grids were made to distribute it, everything changed. Night vanished under electric light, motors replaced steam and muscle in factories, and homes filled with appliances that saved endless labor. It teaches us that understanding a fundamental force of nature allows us to build an entirely new world on top of it. Electricity is the silent, invisible foundation of modern life, powering everything from the smallest thought in a computer to the largest city on Earth. Imagine a world where sharing a document with someone in another country meant mailing a physical copy and waiting weeks. Collaboration was slow, and information was stored in isolated silos. The internet began not as a public tool, but as a military and academic project called ARPANET, designed to create a robust, decentralized network where computers could talk to each other. The pivotal idea was packet switching, breaking data into small blocks that could travel independently and be reassembled at their destination. This meant the network had no single point of failure. From this resilient foundation, the World Wide Web added a simple, graphical layer we could all use. Instantly, the barriers of geography and time for communication and information crumbled. It teaches us that the most powerful networks are those designed to share, not to control. The internet is a reflection of humanity's collective mind, a tool that reminds us that while we invent technology, what we ultimately build with it is connection. Before the steam engine, power came from muscles, human, animal, or the inconsistent push of wind and water. Factories had to be by rivers, and travel was slow and limited by the strength of a horse. Then, inventors like Thomas Newcomen and James Watt tamed steam. They realized that boiling water created immense pressure that could push a piston, and that motion could turn wheels. The steam engine was born, It was the first reliable source of power that could be built anywhere. It drove locomotives that connected cities and continents, and powered machinery that transformed how goods were made. The world suddenly felt smaller and faster. This invention shows us that harnessing a fundamental force, like the expansion of heated water, can break the physical limits of an era. The rhythmic chug of the steam engine was the heartbeat of the Industrial Revolution, setting in motion our modern world of movement and manufacturing. Picture yourself on a wooden ship surrounded by endless ocean. The sky is overcast for days, no sun, no stars. You are utterly, terrifyingly lost. For early sailors, this was a constant fear, limiting exploration to coastlines. Then came the compass. In ancient China, they discovered that a lodestone, a naturally magnetic mineral, would always point in a consistent direction when freely suspended. This was refined into a magnetized needle on a pin, floating in water, or balanced on a card. For the first time, humanity had a reliable guide that worked in any weather, day or night. This tiny instrument empowered the age of exploration, connecting continents and cultures. It shows us that by tuning into the invisible forces of our world, like Earth's magnetic field, we can find our way. The compass didn't just navigate ships, it steered the course of human history toward global connection. Imagine needing to move something heavy, a large stone for a building, a harvest of grain, a sick family member. Before the wheel, you dragged, you pushed, you carried on your back. It was a world of pure, grinding friction. Then, somewhere in ancient Mesopotamia, a thinker saw a rolling log. They realized that circular motion could be harnessed. By attaching a fixed, rotating disc to an axle, they created a system that turned sliding friction into rolling friction. This simple ring of wood didn't just make things easier to move, it allowed people to transport goods over distances, connecting villages and ideas. It became the heart of carts, mills, and gears. The lesson isn't just about the shape, but about reducing resistance, a principle that powers everything from bicycles to industrial machinery. The wheel shows us that the most profound solutions often start by observing the natural world and asking a simpler, smoother way forward. Before the light bulb, nightfall truly meant darkness. Work stopped. Life contracted to the flickering, smoky circle of a candle or oil lamp. It was dim, dangerous, and limited. Thomas Edison, building on the work of many others, pursued a simple question. Could electricity make a safe, long-lasting light? The key was finding a filament that could glow white-hot inside a glass bulb without burning up. After thousands of tests, a carbonized thread did the trick. The moment the switch was flipped, darkness was no longer a barrier. Streets became safer, factories could run longer, and homes were filled with a clean, steady glow. This invention teaches us about perseverance through failure and the power of a practical system. Edison didn't just invent a bulb. He designed the entire electrical ecosystem to power it. The light bulb symbolizes a brilliant idea that literally and figuratively illuminated human progress, turning night into a new kind of day.